Good morning, everyone. This is Kimberly Tucker from DSD Business Systems. I want to thank you all for taking the time out of your day to join our webinar this morning about automating your processes in accounting, finance, HR, and IT. We know many of you struggle with moving paper documents around your organization, like finding documents when you need them, sending them to people in remote offices, and overall losing visibility when the document leaves your possession. And that's why today we've invited our friends at Alltech to show you their document management solution called DocLink. So hopefully we can start to give you some ideas on how DocLink can help you improve efficiencies in AP, AR, HR, IT, or really any department throughout your whole enterprise. So we'd like for this session to be as interactive as possible. So if you have any questions during the presentation, feel free to type into the chat box. I'll be monitoring that live. And without further ado, I'd like to introduce Perry Lynn Silkwood. She is Alltech's Sales Director, who will walk us through DocLink.
Excellent. Thank you, Kimberly, and hello, everyone. So what we're going to cover today is to talk a little bit about digital transformation, and then I want to explain in a bird's eye view what DocLink is. And then just like Kimberly said, we're going to walk through what does DocLink look like when we're talking about it through the lens of accounts payable. And then we're also going to cover how it can impact other departments. And then I'll also infuse today's session with a couple different customer examples and success stories. And that way you get a really good flavor for how other companies are using the solution. But first, let's talk about a digital transformation, and it is happening, and we all need to be on the forefront of this wave, right? This surge in technology is really about helping companies manage their data and their documents and all their processes in a better, more efficient way. It's really about taking that friction out of internal processes and resulting in streamlining those traditional paper-based processes, data entry, and filing, right? Filing and searching and retrieving those documents after the fact. So in the world of document management, we really first think about the document. We talk about the document first, what kind of process it needs to go through in order to create a transaction, and then at the end of the day, which are the people that need to look for that particular document. So it is really about connecting your processes and the data that originate outside of your accounting software, streamlining all of the business processes that are in the middle of getting the document and the transaction, and creating the transaction, and even delivering documents out to partners and customers automatically. So let's take a look at how DocLink works, and this will hopefully give you a really nice baseline to take the concepts of DocLink and apply them anywhere in your organization where you're feeling kind of paper-based pains and bottlenecks that are really impeding you from going after those strategic initiatives. So let's take a look at this chart, right? I'm going to start on the left-hand side, and we'll kind of make our way around. So like I said, document management and DocLink is really concerned with first, what is the document? And we know that there are documents in the organization that are generated in many, many different ways. So the nice thing is that any document, any report, or any form can be brought into DocLink. And we can support that capture by all of these different methodologies. So the big win is you don't have to worry. We've got you covered. Any document can be brought into DocLink. Once a document is in DocLink and it's now electronic, we can now do something with it. And most of the time, that's going to be moving it through some kind of business process. So we've talked about, or we will be talking about, invoices going through an approval process. We may even be talking about a requisition that goes through an approval process. It may be an inbound customer purchase order that's come in. And what is being requested is maybe not part of inventory, so it needs to go through some kind of validation process. But the big point here is that a document can move around the organization with complete visibility and control of the document and the transaction. And then we have the ability to automatically create the transaction saving data entry, right, in your accounting application. And there's bidirectional integration because we want to make sure that everything stays in sync. So if there's transactional changes that happen, that's also going to be moved back to the document, right, because we want to make sure that everything is in sync at all points in time. And then next, we want to be able to help your organization go paperless and remove paper-based filing systems and off-site storage or vaults, things of that nature, or move away from a network file share whereby those links can be broken. Instead, we want to give you easy and powerful access to documents right at your fingertips by a wide variety of search criteria. And you see, of course, here the different methodologies. If you want to search for a document in your ERP, you're golden, right? If you want to look for it via the web client or a mobile application or right on your phone, right, through emails, then you have the ability of doing that as well. Now, lastly, you also have an opportunity to send documents outside of the organization based on a schedule. This really facilitates the manual process of maybe printing something, creating some kind of change, scanning it back in, attaching it to email, joining it up with supporting documents. So I'm painting a pretty, solid picture about a manual paper-based process. But if we capture that document automatically into DocLink, we can use a schedule that sits behind the scenes to say, hey, when you find this document, send it out automatically, and by the way, join it with these supporting documents. So think about things like an AR invoice going out to a customer and being joined by maybe a signed delivery receipt. Or on the other side of the equation, it could be a purchase order, right, going out to a vendor. All right, so hopefully that gives you a little bit of a bird's eye view. Now we're going to start talking about all the different kinds of departments that can be impacted by the technology of document management. So you're seeing all the different areas that we're going to kind of cover and take a look at today. But you know what? It seems like no matter what industry, right, or what department first raises their hand with some degree of interest, it always seems to come back to accounts payable, right? And I think it's simply because AP is generally just awash in paper. And there's a very specific process, and we can really transform the accounts payable department, by helping to streamline the business process. So when we talk about AP, it's really about these core things. It's about eliminating the filing, right, and minimizing data entry. That's important because it helps the organization grow without adding headcount. You can have very timely approvals. That's going to be critical because you can earn early pay discounts or avoid late fees. So all of these kinds of things are building that ROI equation. Plus, it makes it very simple for the approving managers to quickly approve a document. And we also have the ability of giving people self-service document access. This is all about kind of driving productivity and allowing people with the right security to access the documents that they should be allowed to view and not having to call accounts payable and say, hey, I don't remember approving that invoice. Can you send me a copy? Right? Instead, they can go right into the system and look at that particular invoice. Plus, of course, there is what we call seamless ERP integration. So it's seamlessly integrated with your accounting application. All right, let's take a look at a day in the life of an invoice. And so what I've done is I've drawn up a little diagram about what happens in a paper-based process. And we're going to do a little bit of a compare and contrast for you today. All right, so most companies say that they get invoices in, via email and also via hard copy, and some people, of course, download. In a traditional manual-based process, right, the next step is they've got to open the mail, right? Some people are even printing them off of email. And then we may be putting a rubber stamp on that document, starting to assign some GL account codes, right? We may have to be matching it, going back into filing cabinets for the purchase order, right? And then it goes through the approval cycle, And we all know that that approval cycle is not necessarily just one person. It could go around the organization and around and around and around, right? And here is a big problem, because while it's going through the approval process in our manual, paper-based processes, there's no visibility. We don't know who has it, and that's a big problem. So that's where document management comes in, because it's about streamlining that process. But let's go back to our manual process, right? So next step is that, okay, now it comes back to AP. They can do the ERP entry. We're going to cut that check, and then, of course, we're filing it away. And then, of course, if anyone has any questions, we're off back to the filing cabinet, right? So hopefully that is an accurate representation of the manual business process. But let's take a look at what it means to do an invoice process with DocLink. Right, so first we have an electronic image that is available in DocLink. And the accounting team has the ability to review that, right, and then send it out electronically for approvals and coding. We have complete visibility of where that document is in the process. We have a really nice organized way of who's approved that document and when. And then when it comes back to AP, there's an automatic transaction creation in the accounting application. So we're really driving down the data entry that's required. Okay. Next step then, of course, is we are capturing the payment. Now this is all happening automatically. So that payment is captured automatically. It is related back to the invoices that it's covered. And now we have a full document packet available for search and retrieval, either in your accounting application or within Sage. So all of that back and forth and lost invoices completely goes away, plus you're driving additional time savings by making the process very simple. So here's a little kind of brain dump, if you will, of all the different kinds of benefits. And I betcha if you just take a step back and think about your particular business process, you'll be able to easily add to this list of why you should be thinking about document management for your organization. So top of the list, we want to streamline processes by eliminating data entry. If you wanted to go forward with OCR, then we can even do some automatic matching, and that can be very compelling for organizations. There is also an automatic approval process, and you can even do more things like rules-based automation based on maybe vendor, GL account code, project information, amount. So there's a lot of variables that can be taken into consideration. But ultimately, it's really about giving you visibility and control of the invoice and the transaction, simplifying the approval process for everybody involved, leveraging a system that is fully integrated with your accounting system, and giving you documents at your fingertips. And it's not just about AP. Remember, it's also about taking these concepts of document management and applying them to any department where there's those paper-based pains and bottlenecks. So let's take a look at an example. So here's an example of a software, and I've logged in, and I'm seeing an invoice here in my process, or all the invoices that have been sent to me as the AP clerk. I can use the top of this form in order to do the GL coding. There are many, many ways to leverage minimizing keystrokes. We can have used OCR to populate this data. We can also use a concept called templates, which will leverage information that comes from your accounting application. Plus, because we are integrated, there are some automatic fields that will populate based on known data, right? Over here on the right-hand side, we see that the approvals for this invoice are taking place. And once I send it to the next step in the approval process, I may get an email alert. Email alerts can take a couple different formats, if you will, but the most common is to actually have that approver look at the invoice in their email and simply click a button, approve or deny. What will happen is that we'll put their approval on that document and send it to the next appropriate workflow status. If you have a team that are more mobile users and want a true mobile application, then that's available as well. We see the mobile application coming into play when people want not just email approvals, but they also want to use their mobile device for searching for documents, or maybe they need to have a more robust functionality of workflow, and then we would push them towards that mobile device. Let's take a look at some of the business benefits, in terms of what is the accounting manager or the controller thinking about. So it really is about giving the manager visibility of all invoices that are coming into the organization and where they are, right? Improved accuracy. The more times that we limit data entry, we drive up accuracy and no more having to do reclass entries and things of that nature. So you can really turn your accounting staff into more higher value add activities. Maybe it's about vendor negotiations, right? Or it's about growing the organization without having to add team members, and that can be a really significant cost savings for an organization. All right, visibility and control. All right, here are some areas of functionality. And what I'm doing today is just trying to kind of raise the visibility of why companies should think about document management. If any of these concepts really kind of resonate with you and you're thinking, oh my gosh, yes, I need this desperately, right? Give us a call and we'd be more than happy, or your DSD rep, right? And we can set up a demonstration and talk about kind of what's happening in your organization and really look at the software so we can show you how DocLink would help support your particular project goals. Right? Okay, back to visibility and reporting. Right, so why is this so important and what can we do? So there you can monitor workflow statuses and know where everything is at any point in time. From a management perspective, if you have multiple AP team members, it'll also help you manage their workload. We have a full audit trail, and that becomes very, very critical in knowing who did what when with that document. Of course, this would help improve financial reporting, and it's fully intercompany enabled. So just know that if you're transacting across companies, then we can support that, and that is also a differentiator for us in the marketplace. Now, when we're talking about improved accuracy, it really is about eliminating and reducing that human error and forgetfulness on those due dates, and helping organizations take advantage of those early pay discounts and avoiding late fees. Other ways of improving accuracy are repurposing data from the ERP, right, or the financial accounting application. We can capture that GL coding information and no longer have to write it on the face of a document. That's pretty critical. So these are some of the elements in terms of really driving productivity across multiple team members. And here are some interesting stats, right? Did you know that it costs an organization $20 just to simply file a document? And it's $120 to retrieve it, or $220 to recreate a document. So think about how many documents you file as an organization, right? And do a quick calculation. How about how many times are you asked to retrieve a document or recreate a document? So you can start seeing that, the costs of doing business manually are really quite extreme. And if you add on the other inherent benefits, then that ROI equation can become quite significant. All right, so let's take a look at a case study. So I want to introduce you to Tyler Technologies. And for this particular company, they were growing, right? Growing constantly. And they needed to be able to increase the usability and the business efficiency in AP. And like almost everyone else, they say, we need to streamline the process, right? Also, they had about 400 to 500 ACH remittances, and they were actually physically being printed out and physically mailed out weekly. So what they did was they switched over to our automated email notification for when the payment was made, and that made it super, super efficient for them. Now, they also had a storage problem. They were using on-site storage, and I think that they said it was like a 15 by 4 foot closet, right, that was filled wall to wall. And they also leveraged off-site storage. So this became really, really important for them to get all documents in an electronic library and really, really, give them much better time savings. Time savings in physical time to search and retrieve a document. And then actually we could also calculate that square footage, because now they would no longer use that space, right? For some people, that ROI calculation is a soft dollar savings, meaning yes, it's a savings, but they're not physically going to be spending the money, unless of course they were having to go after more office space. Then they could obviously repurpose that business space. All right, so hopefully that gives you a little bit of a flavor on the AP side, but let's now take a look at accounts receivable and really look at how we can help AR streamline business processes. So here are the top things when thinking about AR, right, that we can really make delivering invoices very, very quick and fast. The big win is that you can join up that primary document with another documentation and also improve customer service. So you're getting their invoices out faster, they're able to pay faster, and everybody is happy. So automated delivery, right? You have the ability to configure rules so that the right documents are going to the right people or multiple people, and you can develop the rules as to when you're sending one document out, you can determine, does it need to have any of the backup documentation sent? You also get an opportunity to configure what's the preferred method of distribution. In some cases, it's going to be email. In some cases, it may be fax. Right, so you have a couple different options there. And the big thing is that you get to also specify the delivery schedule. That's important because you maybe always want to do it either immediately or maybe even on off business hours. So let's look at a case study, right? I love this one because this is a particular customer of ours, and they were able to save $11,000 just in postage only. Now, think about it. If it's postage, then there was also envelopes that are costing them money, paper, right, and the time that it took to actually stuff and mail those envelopes. So there again is another opportunity of leveraging software to really streamline and optimize processes. Okay, let's take a look at document management for HR. Right, so hopefully you're really getting an idea of, in the document management world, we're always pretty much asking the similar kinds of questions. Number one, what is the document and how is it produced? That will tell us how we can capture it. The next step is, how does that document travel around the organization? That is an element of workflow and how we're going to move the document between employees. The next question is going to be about, how are we wanting to transact that particular document? Do we want to push it into transaction, or are we simply storing it for some kind of search and retrieval? And then lastly, it's always about, all right, who needs to access that document? So in the case of accounts or of human resources, right, there's all sorts of opportunity in terms of capturing documents about employees and keeping them in a secure electronic device. It's also about capturing documents and then routing them through an approval cycle, similar to what we do in an AR or an AP invoice, right? You may want to put an application through a workflow. So we have a supermarket chain, and they used DocLink extensively. Actually, they started in HR, and then they went back to an AP deployment. But just to give you an idea of scale, they have about 600 employees. They have 5 stores. They have sales of about $110 million. So this is on the larger scale. DocLink is scalable. It can be used for a departmental solution, or it can be used enterprise-wide. And this particular company actually bumped into us at a conference. And so what they really, really needed to do is that they just had paper everywhere. They were also moving facilities, and they needed to go paperless. So in HR, they were able to deploy the solution, having all sorts of things in their applications, demographic change forms, everything related to HR. And then ultimately, they also extended that out to the AP side of things. Big win for them. They repurposed about 50% of their AP team members to other departments. So talk about a powerful ROI, right? That can be really, really powerful. Another company, right? Taco Bell. This is the corporate headquarters. So they were spending 175 hours a month on processing new hires. But by being able to implement DocLink and streamline that process, now it takes mere minutes. So that's another compelling ROI. So if in your organization you are awash in paper and HR, that would be another area to explore. All right, let's look at document management through the lens of a chief financial officer. So top concerns for the CFO, right? They want to be able to scale the organization without adding headcount, want to manage compliance and risk, and they want to make sure that the application that they are purchasing can be deployed across the enterprise so that they can maximize the use of their investment. So here's another little case study for Thornburg Investment Management. And I love their quote, "We can now process an ever-increasing volume of invoices and payments without hiring another clerk at a cost of $40,000 annually." Right? And so when you think about streamlining processes and avoiding adding headcount, that's a year-over-year savings. Right? So they got their ROI in about 9 months. Right? They also not only saved the 40 grand not having to hire additional staff, but also eliminated about $7,500 in storage fees. So that's pretty important as well. When we talk about compliance, it really kind of goes back down to giving auditors very easy access to documents, and you have a choice in terms of how you do that. We had one company, this was a company back east, and they had actually unfortunately suffered a 6-figure penalty from a sales tax audit. The reason why is because they weren't able to produce the documents. So what they did was they actually scanned in their historical packets first, which is a difference than our usual customers would do, right? Because they knew that if they got, tagged with a penalty fee one year, then those auditors were coming back next year with a fine-tooth comb as well. So they did their disbursement packets first, and then they went back and did a traditional kind of AP deployment. But no additional penalties incurred, right? Their audits are very much simplified, and now they're able to really streamline that whole entire AP process from, rec to check as well on that side. All right, so DocLink, right? It's an enterprise-wide solution. So my challenge for you is to really think about where in your organization are you suffering from paper-based pains and bottlenecks. And it may be that AP is still for you, the biggest kind of pain point. It may be that you are suffering more greatly in other areas. So this little slide here is talking about just helping you think very broadly about the concept of document management and where you can deploy them in your organization. Lastly, right, we want to kind of look at DocLink through the lens of the CIO. And the top concerns from a CIO perspective is security, right? Having an information system that is disaster recovery proof and having a solution built on industry standards. So security is really kind of one of the number one questions that I get when talking with CIOs or on the IT side of things. And the nice thing about DocLink is that it has very, very deep and granular security. So it starts at having which company, right, does that user have access to. So it's also fully multi-company enabled, and that's really important for many companies. The next level is what department are you, do you belong to, and what are the rules of access for that department. And then you can get even more granular in setting up, well, what document types should you have access to? And then depending on your role in the organization, we may even want to only have you have access to a subset of various documents. So just know that security is very tight and can be managed very easily as well. All right, so Aspen Square, right? They had a ton of reasons as to why they needed to buy DocLink, right? And then unfortunately, they experienced a tornado. And that was really quite catastrophic for the organization. But there was a silver lining in that, they were able to get up and running very, very quickly. However, their legal team had not yet deployed DocLink, and the legal team, I believe, had a tree kind of pierce their filing cabinets. So in that particular case, they had obviously a harder time in reproducing documents. But the point here is more to think about, disasters in your particular area, and think as an organization on best methodologies in terms of surviving, those potentially catastrophic events. All right, so let's take it up a level or two. DocLink can impact everyone in the organization. And if we think about it in through the lens of accounts payable, even though we are talking about AP invoices, those invoices need to travel through departments. And those departments have managers, and they may even have VP or regional people that also additionally need to approve a document. So it can have, tremendous impact, not only from an invoice approval perspective, but there are many, many different areas. So here again is just a light bulb moment of thinking about where those paper-based bottlenecks are and where you want to start, right, in looking for a document management solution. All right, so why DocLink, right? We are celebrating our 34th year in the industry. We have a team of exceptional people who are very, very smart, not only in their own fields, but in document management per se. And we have a world-class product. So I've been working here at DocLink for about 12 years now, and I absolutely love the application. It has a very, very rich feature set. We have a proven implementation methodology, and I love getting feedback from our customer support folks, or customers that have used customer support, and they always give very, very glowing reviews. So I think with that, we can actually open it up for questions. And so if anyone out there has any questions, please feel free to chat them back to Kimberly, and we can spend a couple moments on just Q&A, and then we can wrap up for today. So Kimberly, let me know, are you getting any questions in the chat feature?
Yeah, actually, there's one here that says, is DocLink installed on its own server, or can it be installed on the server that is running other applications as well?
It can be run on other server applications. Now, best practices is that it's on its own server, right? But depending on kind of like the memory that's left, it can be deployed on the same server that you're running your ERP on.
Perfect. And then another one here says, can DocLink be accessed remotely over the web or on a mobile device?
Oh, good question. So yes, and I'm not sure that we talked about that today. So there are many, many different access points for DocLink. So there is a full-blown web client. So if you want to access it by Safari or Explorer or Firefox or any of those browser applications, that's a possibility. We have a full mobile application. So if you want a true mobile application, then that's another access point. I did talk about the integration with the accounting application, so you can access DocLink that way, or just simply on a traditional desktop access as well.
Awesome. And then just one last one here. It says, can I put any document into the DocLink repository or document library?
Oh, good question. Yes. And the answer is yes, absolutely. The good thing to remember is that we've been talking about documents, and usually that means, an invoice or an HR application. But you can also store any kind of document, report, form, or file type. So if you have pictures and videos, those also can be stored in DocLink.
That's awesome. Okay. That is all the questions that we got today. And so if anybody has any more, feel free to reach out to me. I'm Kimberly Tucker again, and my information here is on the screen. Or you're welcome to reach out to your account manager at DSD, or basically any way you'd like. We're here for your follow-up questions, and we just want to do everything we can to help you take everything digital.
Nice. All right. Thank you, everybody. Have a great day.
Thank you, Carolyn.
You're welcome. Good